propaganda, mind control, and brainwashing. Alright, I had to apologize to somebody on Instagram the other day. Because we were in a debate over driving without a license. I was saying, no, you don't need a license to drive. And he was like, driving is a privilege, not a right. And I was like, no, you're just brainwashed. And I didn't mean it offensively, but I could see where it was taken offensively because it was in a political conversation about what the law means, what the government can or can't do, that kind of stuff. And I know people usually get pissed off and start throwing insults. But I had to clarify with him that I wasn't trying to insult him by saying he was brainwashed. I was trying to bring to light that he was brainwashed, because one of the things about being brainwashed is you don't know when you're brainwashed. And I've been brainwashed. Like, I'm not perfect. I'm not holier than thou. I'm not this brilliant genius who was birthed from my mother's womb with this inherent knowledge of the universe and how the government works and all the fraud that they've been perpetrating upon us. No, I was brainwashed, and I had to learn how to unwash my brain. But I this is really, really important, because one thing I've learned over the years is you can't change anything about yourself if you don't want to change it. And you have to want to change it. And if you believe you're not brainwashed, if you believe everything you've been told is the truth, you're never going to question it. And if you don't question it, then anything that you've learned that's a lie, you're going to believe is the truth, and you're just going to be wrong. Now, that doesn't mean you're wrong about everything, right? I mean, this one's going to be controversial. The government says the sky is blue. I was going to say the government says the earth is round, but I'm not going to go there. The government says the sky is blue. Nobody disagrees with that, right? The government sets a standard of what a kilogram and what a pound is. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. I mean, it would be easy for somebody to say, oh, well, you're brainwashed. You believe that's really a kilogram? No, the government's got it all wrong, and I hope I'm not giving birth to a new conspiracy theory right now. Someone could easily say that, but nobody says that. Because what the government is saying is the truth. That doesn't mean the government is honest. It doesn't mean they're not lying about everything else. When the government says driving is a privilege, not a right, that's... I want to say it's a lie. It's really just misleading. Look at me. What I'm doing right now is not driving. I don't want to get into the weeds on that. But when somebody says something that we've heard a million times, those specific words, driving is a privilege, not a right, especially when you use those specific words that have been used a million times before, that's not an original thought. You're regurgitating propaganda that has caused you to believe something. Now, of course, if we say there's 5,208 feet in a mile, well, are we regurgitating propaganda? No, because that happens to be, in fact, true. So, repeating something that you heard isn't necessarily brainwash. Repeating something that you heard that's false, having never questioned it, having never challenged the sources, is brainwashing. Especially when it's done intentionally, and especially when the information is false. How do we know there's 5,208 feet in a mile? It's not a law of the universe. Somebody decided that at some point. Maybe somebody came up with a mile and somebody came up with a foot, and then at some point they compared that together. 5,208, that's a weird number of feet. You sure it's not 5,208.1? Right? But at some point, when they were figuring out the measurement system, they just said, yeah, well, let's just make it what it is. And that's how it ended up. And so you can probably trace that back and figure out whether or not that's the correct number. You could just do a simple internet search, but of course, if everybody believes a lie, then the internet's not going to be very useful. You have to go down to the source, right? If you understand where these measures came from, then you can more accurately say, oh yeah, this is what happened. In fact, sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent right here because this is a little interesting factoid. So the Celsius measure is from, everyone's like, oh, Celsius is so weird. Celsius is 0 degrees is when ice freezes at sea level, and 100 degrees is when water evaporates at sea level, or when water boils. Evaporates, I guess it's the same thing, at sea level. Or during normal atmospheric pressure, or something like that. So what's the scale of Fahrenheit? Why does water freeze at negative 32? And why is room temperature 67 and all this? Well, turns out Fahrenheit has a 0 to 100 scale too. I couldn't tell you what they are, but 0 means something significant. And I believe, I could be wrong about this, you're going to have to do some independent knowledge, and this one's easier to find. I believe 100 degrees is what was believed to be the human body temperature until they later figured out that they were measuring it inaccurately, and then they said, oh, well, I guess your body temperature is actually supposed to be 98.7 on that scale, because they didn't want to correct the scale, because maybe they had made too many thermometers or something, I don't know. Go look that up. It's an interesting story. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but whatever the story was, it was pretty interesting. Anyways, back to brainwashing. Brainwashing, propaganda, mind control. Okay, when I say mind control, a lot of people, if you grew up watching the same movies as me, you think of these radar gun laser machines that they put on spaceships to try to shoot down to Earth and control what people think. That's not really what mind control is. That's kind of a sci-fi version. Mind control is real. And there's a really great example, I'll give you in a second. Mind control, if you think about it, what does mind control mean? It's controlling somebody's mind. Controlling somebody's mind to what? Right? In the sci-fi movies, it's, we're going to turn them into a zombie, and we can whisper orders into a microphone, and then they'll turn into a zombie, and they'll just do whatever we say. That's an exaggeration of what mind control is. If I want you to do something, and I ask you to do something, hey, do this for me, and you say no, but I really want you to do it, I might find some more manipulative way to do it. I might find some way to control your mind. That might mean I'm going to blackmail you. That might mean I'm going to put some thoughts in your head like, oh my God, the redcoats are coming. If you don't go do this now, you're going to die. And if you believe me, if I give a convincing enough story, you're going to do what I wanted you to do. Not because you wanted to do it, not because you wanted to make me happy, but because of the information that I put in your mind that made you do the thing for what you believe is your own benefit. Okay, so I want to give another example of this. This is a really awesome example. If you go onto YouTube and you look for, there's this movie called Now You See Me, I think is what it was called. It was with the magicians, with Woody Harrelson and and that other kid from Zombieland. No. I don't know, maybe I'm mixing up my movies, but Now You See Me, Morgan Freeman was in it. And look for the intro scene, it's on YouTube, and this guy pulls out a deck of cards, and he says, okay, I'm going to flip through the cards, and I want you to look for a card in this deck, and when you see that card, I want you to remember it. Don't say it, just remember it. And when you watch this, pick a card. Pick a card as you watch it. And you will be amazed at the results. That's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to spoil the trick. But that is a perfect example of mind control. It's not always nefarious. It's not always, oh, I saw the intro to this movie, and now I'm going to go burn down the White House. Like, no. Mind control simply means controlling somebody else's mind. Or maybe controlling your own mind. Which is actually a thing. If you, a lot of people, there's different school of thoughts on it, but you control what goes into your own mind, and you control how your own mind operates, which is actually a very useful skill. I can't think of any examples, but I'm sure I've done it on my own. Oh yeah, here's one. I used to get the munchies when I smoked weed. And I kind of hated it because I would always eat some really nasty food and you know, like Jack in the Box 2-for-1 tacos, 2 for $1, and just like really feel like shit in the morning. We'd eat like 50 of those tacos. And so what I did was I convinced myself somehow when I was high to be disgusted by the idea of food. And so now when people were like, oh yeah, man, we're going to go to Jack in the Crack and get some tacos, I would just be like, no, I'm good. Because normally I would be like, oh, that sounds great. I would eat it, I would love it, and then afterwards I would feel like shit. Or like in the morning I would feel like shit. But I controlled my own mind. But so okay, going back to my original point, what's super, super, super important about this is that we need to recognize when we are being brainwashed. Because if we don't know when we're being brainwashed, then, oh shit, there's a little accident right here. See that? I don't know if I held the phone up right for that. If you don't recognize when you're being brainwashed or when you're being influenced, you can't control it. And a lot of what the government does, and not just the government, I mean, the government itself does it, but the political parties do it. The Democrats and the Republicans do it. They do it outside of the force of government. So, let me give you an example. When the IRS comes along and says, you must pay your taxes, which is a lie for most people, that is the government brainwashing you. When the Democrats come out and say Trump is literally Hitler, that is a political party outside of government brainwashing you. When Trump says the Mexicans are coming, they're gonna send their rapists and murderers, that is brainwashing, that is influencing, that is mind control. They're putting thoughts in our head that were not already there. They're pretending to introduce us to factual information in order to affect our behavior. Whether that behavior is simply to vote, or whether it's to do something else, whether it's to go to the streets and burn down buildings and create mayhem. But consider this. Trump may have just said the rapist and murderer line to get votes. Maybe that's all he wanted. But are there side effects? We're dealing with people's minds here. They are very complex machines. Are there side effects? When you say something just to get a vote, are there real world consequences for people who are now believing your lies who are now doing other things than just giving you their vote. And I don't want to pick one side on this. The Democrats and the Republicans both do it. And the Libertarians aren't free from guilt in this either. But we have to recognize it when we see it. And I know a lot of people think, oh, I recognize it. I'm immune to that shit. I'm impervious to the lies. No. Look at your life. Look at what you do every day. Look at what you consume. And I guarantee you, maybe politicians haven't had that much influence over you. But advertisers have. Oh, yes. What brand of car do you drive? What brand of shampoo do you use? What TV shows do you watch? All of that is affected by marketing. They spend billions of dollars, probably trillions of dollars now, to control your behavior and make you buy certain products and watch certain shows and do certain things. And even if you know it's there, even if you can look at that billboard and say, aha, I know that billboard is just trying to control my behavior and make me purchase something, it's not enough, because even if you try to block it out, it still affects you. Even if your behavior is now that you reject all messages, you see something on a billboard, I'm going to completely ignore that billboard. It's probably all bullshit. That might not have been the intended consequence of mind control, of their mind control, but it is the actual consequence. It is the side effect, maybe, of their attempt to influence your mind. Super, super, super important. And we need to recognize this. Not because I want everybody to go into that paranoid side effect of blocking everything out, but we need to be smarter in our decisions, in our consumption of information. We need to understand what we're seeing, what we're hearing. We need to understand that we are all brainwashed. And once we understand that, we can do a little bit more reflection on the information that we know, the information that we learned so many years ago. I mean, think about it. If you're smart enough now to hear something and question it, that's great. But what about all the things you learned 10, 20, 30 years ago that you took as fact and never questioned? Because you weren't trained to question things at that point. All that information is still there. And you're still treating it as fact. And we don't even think about it because it's been there so long. And that is the long-term brainwashing. That is the stuff that we all need to look at and consider. Alright guys, I'll catch you next time. Taxation is theft.